Dawson's Rambles.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here, and I wanted to do a quick little video on this topic that's been going around the fandom for like a day, a couple days, a few days, week, I don't know, time, Gaim. But you know, is Power Rangers dead? Yes, let's all pack it in. No, I'm just kidding. It's basically come about because of a couple things. I feel like it's weird timing, but based on a comment that I think it was MMPR Toys got from their YouTube advisor, and then this fandom generally speculating and talking about, you know, the state of the franchise. And again, you know, a lot of it, of what's being said makes sense, but it's weird timing given that we're 2-3 months away from the Hasbro era being in full swing, depending on, you know, when the toys in the show release. I know, like, the toys, April, I think, is when they can, I can't remember if it's March or April, but I think it's April when the toys come out, but we don't know if the show's coming in March or whatever. But the point is, we're really close to the new era starting. Like, so it seems like weird timing to be like, oh, Power Rangers is dead. Even though we know, like, it's on a hiatus, I'm like, I thought we all mutually agreed this was gonna be a slow time. Like, you know, because everything's been slow. Like, YouTube stuff been slow for Power Rangers stuff because there's nothing to talk about, you know? I mean, every now and then there'll be cool little news bits I'll get to talk about, like the, you know, the Beast Morphers armor and stuff like that we saw pictures of. But I mean, there's no new toys, which is just going to happen. So, I don't know, like, of course I've been a little worried about it from time to time too over the past few months, but I also know that, like, we're right around the corner from Hasbro, you know? So, it just seems like weird timing. Like, if we were still in the Neo Saban era and we were getting ready for yet another season that looked like it was going to be the same stuff with very limited promotion. Like, remember how Ninja Steel and then Super Ninja Steel just had really bad promotion? It felt like it was very much an afterthought. Ninja Steel was a lot because I think they were focusing on the movie, but like, imagine we were going into that. Then I could see being worried. Or if we hadn't heard anything, if Ninja Steel just ended and we hadn't heard anything, then I'd see being worried. But you know, we know what's gonna happen. But you know, also a lot of this is talking about kind of the worry of the franchise being able to stay relevant, because obviously it's quiet right now for a very good reason, but just not getting stale, because Power Rangers has more or less been formulaic for its whole run. You know, we've had little bits of creativity, but I've talked about this numerous times in numerous videos, but I mean, I agree with it. It's been stale. I think, just to summarize, I've gone over this before, but Saban's problem was it just ended up being okay with being at a certain level. I think that they did have ambition to make it bigger with the movie and stuff, but they were like their own worst enemy. I think they had ambition to make it bigger, but they also were like, oh my god, let's just do the same writing as MMPR because that worked in the 90s. That's a good plan. And then, you know, after it just kind of did okay enough, they were okay with keeping it at the same quality. I've said this before, but I think the problem is that the writing quality and the way they talk down to kids is just enough to keep a certain age group interested, but not like good enough to keep them interested as they grow up a little bit. Like, for example, when I, you know, watched MMPR when I was little and grew up with it through, you know, Wild Force until now, but I mean, kid era me, you know, the series, it didn't like go, oh, I'm so dark and mature, we're standing next to beer, but it did age up a little bit so that, you know, it would still appeal to kids my age when I first got into it, but it also appealed to me as I was getting older. And Neo Saban era seemed only concerned with getting the certain age group, and when they aged out of it, they didn't care about them anymore, and they just got the next group. So they weren't growing, you know, and so it did get stale. And it's weird because I think the Disney era shows, and obviously we know Disney can do wonders with stuff like with Marvel, but in terms of the shows, I think those, if they would have been put out there more, could have had more appeal and maybe done better. And it's funny because I think like the people making the show during Disney cared more. I don't mean like everybody, like the actors and everyone was like, to hell with this, but I mean like there was more effort into making a quality show, whereas Saban Corporate, I think for a time, cared more about making the show better. I mean, not better, making the brand bigger, sorry, definitely not the show better. But it's like, we need like an amalgam of those two. But you know, I agree that there is things to be cautious about given how stale Power Rangers has been and everything, and you know, making sure that we don't stay stale in the future. I think that these 2 years for Beast Morphers are going to be very transitionary. I think it'll be maybe a little different than what we've gotten, but I don't think it'll be too different. I think it's gonna be like a testing ground for Hasbro to sort of put content out there, start building their version, but I don't think we'll see their true voice in what would make Hasbro era unique from the previous eras until 2021, I think, when they have the 3rd year of the Nickelodeon contract or whatever they do after that. You know, And so I think that it's going to be a little more of a wait. Like, even if Beast Morphers does well, I don't think Power Rangers is going to jettison into the stratosphere or anything like that. But I think that's kind of a good way to go about it, sort of gain their footing and get the brand out there. And I think there will be things that are refreshing about it. And I think I think Hasbro, I know some people have mixed opinions on Hasbro, but I don't think that they're a company that would spend all this money on a pretty recognizable brand to just kind of do a half measure effort for a year and then give up. I think that we're gonna be at least, the very least, in for a few years of them trying, and I think that they've proven, you know, that they know how to handle some things. I know that, again, another thing that's controversial is the Transformers movies, but however you feel about the original Bay Era ones, the 2007 movie, you know, brought Transformers back into being a bigger thing. I mean, Transformers has always been around, it's always had its fans, but when that movie came out, it made it back into like a mainstream thing. Same thing, Dragon Ball Super, it's kind of a weird example. Again, these both have different circumstances, but Dragon Ball is something, again, always been around. You know, there was always games coming out, always had its fans. There would be varying peaks and valleys of interest, but when Super came about, it blew up again, like crazy blew up. In some ways even bigger than it was. So again, I know different circumstances, but it's totally possible for Power Rangers to come back again. I don't know about Dragon Ball Super levels or something, but you know what I mean, is that there's been franchises that have gone dormant and then come back. And let's also remember, Power Rangers was supposed to have been killed like a bazillion times. Like, well, In Space was supposed to end, Wild Force could have potentially ended if Disney didn't buy it. When we ended RPM and then we got the MMPR 2010 revisioning thing, and then Neo Saban happened, you know, so, and the franchise has gone on for so long, and if something ever did happen to it, I don't think it would be like, oh, it's gone forever. It would probably come back, because that's how most things are right now. I mean, right now Bakugan and stuff is coming back. But the point is of this video, just sort of sum up what I was just saying, just be cautiously optimistic. That's what I am. It feels weird for me to be optimistic because I'm a huge pessimist, but it just feels weird to all of a sudden go on Twitter and see the fandom being like, oh my god, Power Rangers is dead, they're not gonna make it. I'm like, wait, are we not a month away from a new era? Or am I in a different timeline? Damn it, Barry. So it's definitely good to be cautious about, you know, not put too high expectations on Hasbro immediately taking off. But I think there's reason to be hopeful. Like I said, we're about to enter a new era. It's not as if there's nothing on the horizon. In fact, there's quite a bit on the horizon. And I think that, you know, it'll probably be a little bit of slow burn, but I think it has potential to take off. I remember, you know, back when the movie came out, people thought that that was gonna do it. Like, I remember people on Twitter saying things are about to change, like Power Rangers is gonna become next level, and that didn't happen. But I think it's possible that under Hasbro, if they do it right with the movie and other stuff, it could happen. I think for now, I'm just hoping for things to get better within the fandom / a little bit bigger. You know, obviously, we're going to get some new fans from the new show, but, you know, let's aim high, but let's take it slow. You know, I want Power Rangers to jettison after we get a movie or something and become bigger, but I'll be happy with just when Beast Morphers happens to sort of reinvigorate the fandom itself, gain a little bit of fandom, just sort of start expanding a little bit, but just take it slow. And then once we head into more of the actual Hasbro era, where they can find their own voice, both with the toys and the show and the marketing, then we can be hopeful. But I personally don't think there's too huge of a reason to worry. Again, if there was nothing on the horizon or we were still in the Neo Saban era and it looked like another run-out-the-clock situation, then sure. But we're literally on the cusp of a new era. For the first time ever, someone other than Bandai's handling the toys will be hitting the shelves in a few months. We're going to get our first taste of somewhat of Hasbro's Power Rangers in the next few months. There's a lot of comics still. There's a lot to be excited about this year, so I think just be cautiously optimistic. Just real quick here, another good example is Ben 10. When Omniverse just straight up disappeared, like those toys stopped showing up on shelves, the show disappeared, and we didn't hear anything for a really long time. That would be a time to be worried, you know, because it was so weird. It's like, okay, you just stopped airing episodes, the toy. Like, with Bandai and Hasbro, we knew it was happening. We got multiple announcements, so, you know, I feel like we all should have expected this drought. Because, like, again, I've stressed out about it a little too, but then I remember, like, we kind of knew this was happening because we had the transition period where Bandai fades out and Hasbro's going to come back. Just kind of knew that this was going to happen. So that's why I'm not as doomsday, because, again, like, when that Ben 10 thing happened, that was just, it was a little while before we heard anything when they just disappeared. And then all of a sudden they're like, we're gonna do a reboot sometime soonish. And then they burned off the rest of the episodes, and then the reboot came back, and Playmates had the license. I don't even remember seeing a formal announcement or anything about, at all really, but many news about the fact that Playmates now had the Ben 10 toys. That's actually a really good example. It was kind of a similar situation, except we weren't told anything. So there was this period of worry. But look, it's not as big as it once was, I would argue, but you know, Ben 10 did come back, and it's still doing decent, you know, and so that's another good example. So I didn't mean to go long-winded there, but I just thought that was a really good example of a sort of similar situation where there actually was reason to worry. But so, point is, don't freak out too much. Be cautiously? What do cops have to do with this? The Power Rangers aren't even here. Be cautiously optimistic. Remember, Power Rangers may be old, but it can still pull it off.